Russian monster. There might be a YouTube channel with this name, and there might not be. Well, it's been invented for our purposes now. What the Russians have been doing in Ukraine for over 3 years now is monstrous. The Ukrainians clearly do not want to be part of Russia, and they have been fighting back quite successfully considering their size and population disparities when considering Russia versus Ukraine. The issue of modern war is not the primary focus of this video. I am thinking about more distant historical events such as the Cold War instead. Putin and his allies very well could be making the efforts to connect their terrible war to a war against imperialism, and in consequence connect it to this previous Cold War. Needless to say, people like me view the Russian attack on Ukraine as an imperialistic venture, which could be called a conflict of command economies, such as Russia, China, and America, where there is a winner-take-all ideology in opposition to a society where wealth is spread out more evenly in a society. An example is Ukraine and Europe. During the Cold War, Russia had an ideology whereby an entire society could benefit from industrial processes. There is also trade, of course. Many nations lack certain vital minerals and resources, and trade is necessary for these people. There is a definite lack of time to go into all the intricacies of the Cold War. Surely you can intuit what kind of conclusions you are supposed to reach about what this conflict was all about and who benefited and who lost. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was a definite decline in the quality and length of life of Russian people, especially Russian men who are more prone to drink alcohol more so than many other peoples. The 1990s were horrible for Russia. If you are of a certain age, you may have seen the early 80s movie Clue, where communism was identified as a red herring. This means something that is pursued for no purpose and is just basically a waste of time, and yet it may be pursued anyways. Communism does not really reward fully the people who have the abilities to competently manage industrial, scientific, trade, and other processes. There is mind and there is matter. More highly skilled work is rewarded accordingly. So there is a spectrum there. I remember reading the Vietnam War memoir, Chicken Hawk, written by Robert Mason, who was a U.S. helicopter pilot during the war, and in one incident while Mason was working on the ground, he was part of a construction project, and he commented on how a few Vietnamese laborers spent 8 hours digging ditches, and they were paid $1 each for their efforts. One of these laborers may have actually died because they were bitten by a venomous snake. $1 was worth quite a bit more at that time in the 60s in that place, a third world hellhole. You can intuit that this incident stuck with him, and it illustrated the unfairness of various economic systems. Is this our business? Not really. Vietnam is a unique case with a people who, depending on your perspective, are militaristic fanatics who reject some things about the modern world that we may take for granted, or shall we say that these people, the Vietnamese, have a long history of expelling various imperialistic invaders such as Chinese, Mongols, French, and Americans. if you read the Wikipedia article about modern day Vietnam, you could find out or confirm your suspicions about where Vietnam is now on a freedom index. It is one of the most unfree nations in the world, although it is more free than, say, Turkmenistan or North Korea. A lot of this unfreedom in Vietnam has to do with suspicions about various religious groups and how these groups can serve as sixth columns or fascist organizations with so-called kind faces. The standard of living in Vietnam has gone up over the years, being surprisingly beneficial for all people in Vietnam. Global warming is really hitting Vietnam hard, even for the people of this area who are used to these high temperatures. There is only so much that a human can put up with. Hopefully, we have not reached that point yet. Vietnam is, roughly speaking, oriented north to south in a strip of land next to the ocean. The north probably does have lower temperatures overall in comparison to the south. This is a minor difference. Climate emergencies could drive southerners into the north in the near future. This would be something supposedly beyond their control, with a disaster causing emergency migrations. And yet, they still could be treated as subhumans or what have you. So we can look at North America in the same way, perhaps.